Today we are ranking the albums of Babymetal, starting with Babymetal in 2014. Now, I remember when this came out, it seemed like whether people loved it or hated it, they could not shut up about it. Babymetal Death is a solid opener that gives me a mix of Fear Factory and In Flames vibes with the guitar work, while Megatsume quickly introduces the more anime soundtrack-worthy elements with the upbeat synths and vocal performance. And whether you've listened to the album or not, Gimme Chocolate was a pretty inescapable single, and it's easy to see why, considering what an earworm it is. If you hate that, that's fine, but you're not invited to the party. Anyways, this followed up quickly by the Dance Dance Revolution worthy Line and more power metal energy of Akatsuki, and its more extreme contrast of Crushing and Kawaii that makes the album so fun and interesting to me, and no doubt made it such a sensation in the scene. This back and forth is further emphasized on tracks like Doki Doki Morning and the especially heavy Catch Me If You Can, but then things only get wilder from there, incorporating everything from reggae to dubstep by the time it's over. Rondo of Nightmare being another personal standout for me, with its dramatic piano ballad offset by intense gent rhythms. Some call it cringe, some call it a cash grab, but it debuted at 187 on Billboard 200, and I find mashups like this to be way more interesting than the 10,000th old school death metal or metalcore clone out there. Maybe a little inconsistent and unfocused, but otherwise great. I'm gonna actually put this one at great tier though, because I think they only get better from here. Next up is Metal Resistance in 2016. This album kicks off even stronger than the last one, if you ask me, with Road to Resistance, which sounds like a straight-up Dragon Force track thanks to ripping guitar work from Herman Lee and Sam Totman. And then they follow that up with another strong single in Karate, which continues some of the elements that made Gimme Chocolate so great with a more atmospheric and symphonic-sounding performance. Both the songwriting and Nakamoto's vocal performance are off the charts on this one. Similar notes for the Genty GJ, but the band stated that they really wanted to incorporate more styles of metal as per the title, and they bring that in spades. Awadama Fever incorporates breakbeats for a vibe that's like Pitch Sifter collided with Tattoo. Yama is also super fun with more symphonic metal energy, while Amor mixes more Dragon Force with anime soundtrack vibes. Killer bass solo on that one too. Metataro has a more folk metal sounding approach, complete with chanting backup vocals, and Tales of the Destinies even gets a little proggy in the vein of Dream Theater. But they still find time to throw in other elements like further dubstep drops and great use of strings and piano on No Rain, No Rainbow. This one debuted at number 39 on Billboard 200, which was the highest rank for a Japanese artist since Kayu Sakamoto in 1963. I wonder if that's changed now, given how some of these big pop groups have blown up, but yeah, cool stuff. I think this is a much more consistent and cohesive effort that improves on everything from the debut, and so I am putting this one at perfection. Unfortunately, this would be the last album for a time with founding member Yui Metal due to health issues, and also the last album with guitarist Mikio Fujioka. He tragically passed away in 2018. But moving on, we have Metal Galaxy in 2019. Still seemingly unsatisfied with their already ambitious approach, this album is meant to be a concept record that is a literal odyssey through the metal galaxy, containing elements of music from all over the world. Starlight is a killer kind of Periphery-esque single, while Da Da Dance wastes no time showering us in a cascade of guitars and, appropriate to the title, getting that DDR energy going once more. Elevator Girl is inspired by liquid jazz and drum and bass, while Shanti 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 brings some really killer influences from Indian music, complete with sitar. One of my favorite tracks on the album. The incredibly infectious O Majanai continues the folk metal in a more Scandinavian direction, complete with vocals from Sabaton's Joachim Broden. And plenty more guest appearances here with Tim Henson and Scott LePeg of Polyphia playing on Brand New Day, and Arch Enemy's Elisa Whiteglass stepping up on Distortion. Night Night Burn is mad fun and impossible to not at least tap your foot to with its gent meets Latin music approach. In the Name Of sounds like something off of the Therian albums, maybe some African influences here too with the drumming. Kageru reminds me a bit of Riot era Paramore, and then holy crap does Arcadia end things on an epic note with church bells and more epic shredding. Big, longer records like this are often hard to pull off, but add this one to my short list that I think really knock it out of the park. I was not bored for a second with this one. By the nature of its length and broad influences, it's less focused and cohesive, but damn is it impressive. It debuted at number 13 on Billboard 200. I could almost also put this at perfection, but I'm going to put it just slightly under Resistance at fantastic. Then we got the other one in 2023. Metal Kingdom making for another strong opener with the big pounding drums and a powerful vocal performance. It doesn't have the same raging kick in the door metal vibes of the last two, and the OOs feel a little bit too radio pandery for me, but it's still a good one. Notably too, I heard that this is considered kind of a side release sort of, and that sort of makes sense considering the next album is called Metal Fourth, and I feel like that helps to explain the what sounds like kind of more pop oriented trend that continues into Divine Attack's Shingeki. The guitars almost feel like an afterthought on this one. The basic power chord progressions mostly relegated to the background. Thankfully, Mirror Mirror finally turns that around with another full-on periphery-sounding lead, kicking things back into high gear. I also love the transition into the more synth-driven chorus. Very uplifting track. Maya and Monochrome also have some solid riffs alongside the undeniably catchy vocal performances, but again, it just feels like something is kind of being held back to me. Now, as someone who appreciates a wide variety of different music, though, I can appreciate poppier tracks like Time Wave or the beautifully piano-driven Light and Darkness. Also, props to the continued, vocal evolution here. I was going to say this on the previous album too, but you can really hear them kind of coming into their own, and especially on this album, I feel like this is vocals front and center and just really powerful stuff. There are still some bursts of heavier moments and soloing on tracks like Believing and the more Middle East meets EDM sounding Metalism, but what previous felt like a pretty even split is now more like 80 to 20%. But closing out this incredibly brisk 42 minutes with The Legend only seems to further cement the feeling that this is definitely a different kind of chapter for this project. Again, I can't deny that I miss the wild shredding of Metal Resistance and the more diverse palette of influences on Metal Galaxy, but I, again, can really respect musicians who just want to keep shaking things up. It may not be my favorite iteration of their talents, but I still praise especially Suzuka and Moa for bringing top-notch vocal performances here again on an outing that seems to be going for something a bit more streamlined and kind of serious. To quote their own lyrics, "The seasons change, we are not the same." So at the time, this was my least favorite overall, but still I would put it at good tier. And in some ways I do think it's at least more mature and kind of focused than the debut, but it's not really as fun. But that brings us to Metal Fourth in 2025. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to hit the like button and also comment below your own rankings because, as always, this is just my opinion. But kicking this one off with the first of many guest spots on this album with Poppy on From Me to You, and as a fan of hers as well, this feels like a perfect matchup to me. Great song, insanely catchy, though I will say that the music video feels a little uncanny, maybe a little bit of AI going on there, not really sure about that, but also the emphasis on English is a bit of a shift. This followed, though, by Ratatata with Electric Callboy, another great crossbreeding of two very high energy groups with an emphasis on fun. Skipping over to some of the few tracks that they handle on their own here, Algorithm is a solid, just kind of classic anime soundtrack sounding Babymetal song. Strong vocal performance here too. And then White Flame brings back some of that Dragon Force energy to the guitar work. But back to the collabs, I already talked about song 3 on my Slaughter to Prevail review. Fantastic song that I've been jamming a ton, but it does feel a little weird to have it on both albums. Arguably, it does probably fit better here. Con Con is also wonderful, kind of following up a lot of the elements I loved about Shanti Shanti Shanti, but this time filled out further with the help of Bloodywood. I still don't really care for their rapping parts, as the guy just sounds way too much like a slightly more amped up version of Pitbull to me.
But I'm Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah, more like Mr. Worldwide douche.
But the use of additional regional string instruments and the overall composition are very enjoyable. Some similar notes for Metali as well in terms of the additional regional folk instrumentation, this time taking things to Japan. I'm not in love with every element of the song, but the combination of Tom Morello's groovy riffs with what I believe is a shamisen is totally hype. Speaking of rap, Kawaii is definitely my least favorite song here. It's not terrible, but hearing them lean into this kind of SoundCloud direction just isn't very appealing to me. And frankly, it feels like a waste of their vocal talents. Alternatively, we have Polyphia assisting on Sunset Kiss. Predictably, the guitar work is excellent on this one, though at this point it did kind of leave me questioning what Babymetal's identity really is now in the absence of these collabs.
Who am I?
That said, My Queen does a great job of uniting their strengths with the more explosive elements of Spirit Box. So I find myself slightly torn on this one, as I do think it's a more fun and re-listenable album than the other one, but it takes several steps back from that album in terms of refining and evolving their own sound. I find myself enjoying most tracks in isolation, but it feels less like an album and more just like a compilation of collabs with little attention to flow or consistency. Ultimately, it's good enough to make my list of the best of the month, but not the year, and within the scope of their own discography, at least right now, I think I'm feeling kind of like great tier. Y'all check out this playlist for more metal tier lists, or this for your personal YouTube recommendation. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.